Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Hello, creepy friends. Welcome to Nixie Bobs and welcome to another take two, which is my Beauty and the Beast thoughts and reviews. So it's kind of like a little bit of a Hangwoman vlog going on here. So I did record this once. Again, it messed up, but I also went in completely blind. So getting to do it again means I've actually written things down, and I actually went to see it for a second time yesterday with my mum, who cried at the end and then proceeded to tell me that I used to have it on non-stop as a child, Beauty and the Beast. It was definitely an experience for me, so I've literally made points to go down and talk about, because I think that's the best way of being able to sum it up. As a fan from the original in the 1990s, let's just make one little disclaimer here. I don't know a thing about cinematic viewing. I am not an expert. I did not take movie studies. I know nothing. I am reviewing this purely for this channel as a fan of the original and a 90s kid. So I'm just doing it as I see it. So the golden question, which I think everybody's been asking, did it need a remake? Animation wise, no. They summed everything up into it as beautifully as they could, and they made a movie really for its time that was almost ahead of its time. You know, women's position even in the 90s was still changing, and they definitely made Belle a different woman of her time, and it's very refreshing when you go back and watch it as an adult and realise quite what they're doing with the character. In terms of cinematic viewing, we're in such an age where CGI, where all these amazing things can be done and it can be brought to life. I mean, I'm going to reference Cinderella's live action movie a million times here because I freaking well love it, okay? They did an amazing job with that. And it's great really that they can bring it to life in this day and age and make it so amazing. So did it need it? Not necessarily, but is it great to see it in live action and done by humans and not just in cartoon form? Yeah, I think a lot of people are definitely feeling that vibe. Did I enjoy it? Yeah, because I went to see it twice. As soon as I came home from seeing it last week, I went with my best friend, and as soon as I knew it was coming out, I just said to her, this is the date we're going, don't book anything else. So she's had it like planned for 6 months that we were going. I think they did it really proud. I think they did the original proud. I think they did every character proud. I think there's certainly some mentions of certainly changing positioning characters. We've got to mention LeFou, and I'll get onto LeFou in detail later. I think they did the original proud. It stuck to the original plot, but obviously enhanced, enlarged, made some things bigger, made some things better. They missed out a few odd things here and there, but I just think, you know, I go in there and it's such an emotional thing for me, and I didn't realise I was going to have that response to it. Like last week I was sitting there and so many times I was choked up watching it, just like, it was such a big part of my childhood, and I don't think I fully realised it, certainly not till I went with my mum yesterday. Something for it. It's a film where there's something for everyone. Like, I was in a cinema yesterday. This was Friday morning. There were some young children in there. There was an elderly couple behind me. There were two ladies to one side of me. It was myself and my mum. There were people on their own. It's for everyone. There's not something that not everyone can enjoy in this film, which I think is definitely the best thing about it. You get some films where it's catered to only one specific person, whereas this one has something for the adults. It's got a lot for the kids. It's got a lot for the 90s kids. It's for the 90s kids, which is why I always said, children, you can go to the back of the line. We've been waiting 20 plus years for this, so we are more important. Did it live up to the hype? Yes. I think it. When I spoke about this a few weeks ago, I said that if it didn't, it would certainly be a career killer where Emma Watson was concerned, because a lot had gone into this, certainly from her. And it had so much hype and so much build-up and so much, you know, excitement surrounding it, that if it didn't live up to the expectation, it was just going to crash and burn badly. Anyone I've seen, the majority of people have said how wonderful it is, how much they enjoyed it. So yeah, it did live up to the hype, and thank goodness it did. Emma Watson as Belle was obviously, as I mentioned, a risk. I felt it was a risk. You're taking someone who's worked some movies since Potter, but is basically known for Potter, basically known for the role of Hermione. I think it's another one of them situations where you've got Taylor Momsen and people still think of her as Jenny from Gossip Girl, which annoys me down to the ground. It's similar with Emma, I expect. They see Hermione, and alright, Emma is every bit Hermione in a lot of senses, but it's a character you're portraying, it's not who you are. But to take someone who is not a known singer, who's not really done anything, I don't think this characterized per se. Belle is very much a spunky character, you know. so is Hermione. But that Belle is a different character altogether, and she does work brilliantly. I think she is a wonderful choice for Belle. There's certainly, when they're doing the ball scenes, all I'm seeing is Belle. Like, sometimes I'm watching it and I'm thinking, oh, there's Emma Watson playing Belle. When they're doing the ball scenes, I'm just going, that's Belle. She is a graceful dancer, and I think the ball scene is one of the finest moments for her. She just brings it alive beautifully, and I think she definitely is a lovely Belle. Can she sing? Yes. Can she sing as well as Paige O'Hara? No. But we're not expecting her to be Paige O'Hara. She wasn't expecting herself to be Paige O'Hara, okay? I think a lot of people, I mentioned this again, have put so much on going, oh, she can't sing, it's auto-tuned. I've heard all these things going around the internet. But she was not expecting herself to be the calibre of singer that Paige O'Hara is. Paige O'Hara is a West End star, okay? She was back then, I think she still is to this day. There's no competing with someone like that. It's like trying to be Idina Menzel or Samantha Barks. You're not going to have a vocal range like that. If they'd have wanted someone who could portray a voice like that, they probably would have picked Samantha Barks for Belle. I think she would have been a lovely choice as well, just putting that out there. She does put over the character very well and in her own way, and I think the great thing is she's not tried to be the animated Belle. She's made points. They changed up the character. She had a lot of part in that from the things that I've seen in interview, and that makes it refreshing because you're not just trying to manipulate yourself to an animated character. You're taking this character and going, okay, here's my interpretation of this character, and that is what we wanted to see. If we saw the movie chronologically exactly as everything was, it would be a remake, not a retelling and not a new version of it. Similarly, again, with Cinderella, the basic plotline is the same, but you've got all little different bits going on with it to enhance it for cinema, and that's great. I think the thing with Emma, and again, take it with a pinch of salt, understand me when I say it, Dan Stevens sings his songs beautifully. Luke Evans sings Gaston amazingly. So does Josh Gad. Emma, you know, again, I'm not going to deny it. There are better singers out there. I'm not going to say that she's amazing because she's a good singer, but she's not an amazing singer. And that's not being harsh. That is being honest, purely honest. But again, I love the idea that she's not the best singer, because if we were just walking around and could break out into song, not everyone's going to be amazing. But I did like her delicacy. There's almost an elegance in the way she sings it, and it's very subtle. It's not overdone. If they'd have wanted to pick someone who could just be incredible, they would have done it, but they wanted someone who could morph into the character. And for me, if that's not necessarily, you know, being able to hit this high E and blah-de-blah, I don't know musical notes. I saw it as a fan, and I saw Belle, and you know, Belle's a lovely singer, but she's not just a singer. She's a character, and that's, I think, what you have to remember. See beyond not having this amazing vocal range and just feel the character out as it was. I would like to see her sing live, which is something that we haven't had. Okay, I'm not going to deny that. I think Luke Evans and Josh Gad have done little bits here and there. I think they did Be Our Guest at one point. Or did they do Gaston? I think they did both. Animation was incredible. I think my favourite animated character is Cogsworth, and it's not because I love Ian McKellen, because I really love Ian McKellen. I think he's wonderful. His little bromance with Patrick Stewart is something to be admired by everybody. I don't think they could have picked a better Cogsworth. Ewan McGregor as Lumiere definitely bring the character alive, and it must be hard to do it in a French accent as well. And sing in a French accent, let's not mention that. Emma Thompson portrays a wonderful rendition of Mrs. Potts. Again, she's not tried to be Angela Lansbury. She's made it her own. She is a lovely singer. She sings Beauty and the Beast beautifully. Loved her as Mrs. Potts. I loved all of the animated characters. Let's just discuss a couple of things. Plumette is not really a new character. They don't make it look too CGI. You definitely think that this could be a real teapot and this could be a real clock, but some of the things, Cogsworth is just my favourite, and I can't explain to you why, but I just think he's amazing. I love the wardrobe. Is it Madame du Garde-Robe? I don't know if I've got that right. Gaston and LeFou. I don't think they could have picked a better Gaston if they tried. I don't think Luke Evans could have been... I don't know who could have outdone Luke Evans for Gaston, because he is just the most pompously arrogant character, and he puts it over, not himself. You're not arrogant, Luke Evans, okay? I'm just going to put that there. I'm just saying your performance as Gaston was incredibly arrogant and rude, which is every bit Gaston is. I think they slightly watered Gaston down to a point, but I still think he does it in a way that just made me sit there and go, that's just Gaston. There was no two ways about it. I was not seeing someone playing Gaston. I was literally seeing the real life Gaston right in front of me. Oh, loved him. LeFou as the sidekick. Now, I felt I could take LeFou a little bit more seriously in this version. Obviously, he's the clownish little sidekick, little being the operative word where the animation comes into it, because he was little and short and stout and had that weird little nose. But I felt I could definitely, although he was still the comic relief in the movie, let's mention his G-A-S-T, I believe there's another T, but I can't make it out because I'm illiterate. Lovely little moment there. Josh Gad, again, I don't think you could have had a better LeFou if you tried. Those two are just immaculately perfect casting. I think they run off each other very well. They had a lot of chemistry together. It had more depth, and when you take an animation and make it into cinematic, you always deepen your characters and give them more backstory and more information as to where everything came from. When you get a thing like this and you take it and put it into live action, it's not going to be exactly the same. I touched on this a minute ago. It's going to change up slightly. There's going to be a few odd minor little changes here and there. The basic plot line of this story was the same. They followed that basic plot line but added in little bits, changed little bits. The only song I think is missing from the original, I think, is Human Again, which isn't too much of an issue to me. It's mentioned a fair few times throughout it. I didn't mind its absence because it's a nice song, but it's not one that I particularly felt needed it. It's not like if they hadn't included Be Our Guest, for example. That just would have been the end of the frickin' world for every fan anywhere. My favourite song, I think, well, how do you choose? Because everything is so amazingly put together. How do you choose what your favourite song is? I'm torn between four things, really. One is Evermore, which is a new song, which is a Beast song, after Belle goes back to her father. Be Our Guest, of course, because I think the way that that was done was amazing. There's so many amazing moments, and it's so true to the original, just brought up to a completely, not modernised necessarily, but it's just brought up to the next level. Gaston, again, I just think that the way that that's put together, watching them all act it out and clearly have an amazing time doing it, it just fills me with so much happiness to see that song. And it's one of my favourites anyway, but I think there's a sadness and a real tragedy in Paris of My Childhood, which is where we find out what happened to Belle's mum. And it just, every time I've seen it, I think twice, yeah, I've seen it twice now, I can't count. But it's a heartbreaking moment when you find that out, and the way she sings it and the way it's not too overly sung, it's a real heartbreaking moment, and it's something that makes you think about certainly history as well. I also loved the addition of the Enchantress's book that she left Beast, where they do go and have the Paris of My Childhood moment. I just thought that that book was such a good idea, the idea that he was trapped and other people were not. And I also love that we got to have that moment, because obviously, again, you're visiting Belle's backstory, because we never actually knew in the animation why Belle just had her father. We obviously knew that her mother must have passed away at some point. We didn't know why. And to be historically accurate like that is very thoughtful. The use of the Enchantress, or Agatha, was, I think, a very big bonus. I think it was a genius little move, because we only see her once. So I just loved her, you know, this idea that she was there and then she kept cropping up, and it's like saying, I'm always watching what's going on, you know, guys, just, you know, don't mess around. She took what Gaston said with a pinch of salt. She was like, and it's, you know, it's obvious she was watching over Belle. At one point I thought it was Belle's mum, like I thought it was going to be, she was going to take the hood down and go, hello, I'm your mum, I survived the plague and I now have magical powers. That didn't happen. But I did think initially at one point that it could be. It's good as well to see that they use that character a little bit more than they did in the original. I would have liked to see her at the end for the Prince and Belle to just turn around and see the Enchantress and maybe she just disappeared. We didn't see that. I'm not going to tell you what happens because that will be spoiling, and I'm trying to avoid spoilers here, okay? Ian McKellen post-transformation at the end of the film is golden. He's just, again, it defines and personifies everything I love about Ian McKellen as a person and as an actor. He comes out and he's like, and then his wife comes, and it's, sorry, there's a spoiler there, guys. He's, you know, everyone else is so happy to be reunited, and it's like, oh God, turn me back. And it gives you that moment of the kids will probably find it funny, but the adults find it even funnier. So again, we touched on, they've extended and included character backstories in depth. I love the idea of that. Again, you're finding out what happened in Belle's past. You're seeing why the beast becomes such an arrogant little arse before being turned into a beast. I think that's definitely a brilliant idea, and it's also creating a similarity between the characters that they both lost their mums. That was everything pretty much that I enjoyed. That was pretty much everything I enjoyed, and more. I'm trying to keep it to a minimum, but I just want to talk so much about this film. So now there's going to be a few things maybe that I found a little bit negative. I've got to play devil's advocate. I can't sit here and talk something up and then that I loved and then not, and then say, well, there's a few things I didn't like. It's typically with Harry Potter. Enjoy the films, but there's always going to be things, as book fans, we sit there and say, I didn't like that. It's just the way that it is. So for me, I felt like there were a lack of connective scenes in places. Big moment, two big moments that I've got are prior to Belle and Beast having the dance in the ballroom. It's not mentioned. He just goes, oh, I just suggested we were going to have a dance. I didn't think she was actually going to say yes. I wanted to see that moment where he proposed having the dance. I was hoping that was going to be in. I was hoping in the midst of all the tragedy going on at that precise moment, because we just had Paris in my childhood, that, you know, it was going to be a moment where she just turns round and it's just a lovely moment. So hopefully that's going to be in the deleted scenes. Hopefully it might be in a possibly extended version that goes to DVD, but I felt like that was missing big time for me. Another one is Gaston's proposal. It's similar to the original, but again different, as he comes through the gate and they're talking and it ends with, I'm never going to marry you. And I just thought, where was the proposal? Where did he turn around? You know, I wanted to see that moment of marry me, Belle, you know, him being this arrogant little arse and thinking he was going to get away with it. It didn't happen. So I really miss that kind of connection. Like, they should have put that in a little bit more. Thing, again, people have mentioned, and I feel I've got to touch on it, not to be harsh and not to be critical, but to speak as I find it, is Emma Watson a little cold and wooden at times. There's moments where she says things and it's not as put on as I'd like. So when she says there must be some way to break the curse, you could say it with a little bit more feeling. At the end, when Beast is changing, she kind of just stands there and watches, and I think to myself, you know, show a bit more emotion, you know, this moment, you know, you've broken the spell, this is happening, this man that you now love is just, you know, show some shock, show fear, show something. Another thing I loved about Belle is when they do go to the library, at the end of it, she just kind of goes and just has this moment of pure excitement, of bookworm excitement. I thought that was a really cute little addition. It was something that the original didn't have. She obviously just goes, oh, it's wonderful. So I loved seeing this little excitement moment in her. It's a silly little thing there. Gaston's ignorance to Belle's reading is missing in here, as opposed to him coming and throwing Belle's book in the mud and, you know, being rather pig ignorant about it, for lack of a better phrase. He kind of goes, oh, that's a nice book you're reading, and she asks, have you read it? You know, I wanted to see him be, oh, why are you reading? You shouldn't be reading, you're a woman, because that's what it's portrayed as being. Is the Beast a little bit too CGI? I think it's done very well. But there's a couple of odd bits, and I've mentioned this in Thunderbirds, which is like Lady Penelope's hair doesn't move. So I'm going to shake my hair now. The minute I move, my hair moves with me. But when Beast is bowing down, his hair just kind of stays there. Similarly, Lady Penelope's hair never moves. So if you bow down to someone, your hair naturally will move like this. So that was kind of a thing where you remembered it was CGI per se, if you know what I'm saying. But overall, I think certainly the CGI, it must be easier to do CGI for characters that aren't humans in stilts with dots and green. It must be harder to do it for the likes of Beast. Big moment for me that kind of shocked me was obviously the fight between Gaston and Beast. If we know from the original, Gaston shoots the Beast with an arrow and then proceeds, I think, to stab him. But in this version, guns are used. Obviously muskets and old-fashioned, I guess we're putting this somewhere between the 16 and 1700s historically, but obviously I guess you're caught between a rock and a hard place with that. Knife crime is rife, gun crime is rife. You're caught between two evils of going, okay, this is what happens, and we've got no choice. We have to essentially have the Beast die for the change to happen, and we know that. But I was just a little bit shocked that they went for the gun over the knife. Another thing related to Belle, is she unemotional compared to the original? You know, when she locks herself away in in place of her father. You know, when she eventually goes and is taken to a room, she doesn't cry. Instead, she's a bit more feisty and a bit more determined to escape. Whereas obviously Animation Belle cries on the bed. And the only time I actually see Belle cry is during the fight and at the end of the film where Beast is dying. I don't see her cry at her position. And obviously I know we've got feminist Emma Watson in this, and obviously I know they had to translate her feminism to the character a little bit. I think we all knew that was coming. But is it a little bit cold? Does it feel like she should be a little bit more upset about the fact that she's just given away everything? All right, she's considering running away, but could we put a little bit more in that? Perhaps. Again, got to play devil's advocate and ask the question. I was personally hoping for a slightly longer progression of time in this film. My big thing with the original is it does unfortunately border on, you know, oh, here's someone, we're going to fall in love so quickly, and then a couple of weeks later we're going to get married. I was really hoping, again, that works for Cinderella, okay, because that is Cinderella. We're going to let Cinderella go for meet and fall in love and get married a couple of weeks later. But I really was hoping that there was going to be a slightly longer progression of time, and I suppose, hopefully, you could say that it was maybe September when obviously everything was reversed and everyone was happy and happy ever after. But when it all kicks off, Maurice clearly says June. And obviously once the spell is broken and the snow is lifted, it's still summer. So I was hoping that we were going to see a longer movement of time where obviously Belle and Beast got to know each other. I think that defies them as Disney characters, because, you know, they don't get married after a day. They do get to know each other while they're captive and captor, if you want to use that phrase. Stockholm Syndrome, throw it out there. Everyone keeps saying it. What gay moment? What gay moment? All that hype and all that fuss and all that nonsense for a little quick moment with Gaston and LeFou in the middle of the song Gaston, a little moment at the end, and Gaston and LeFou running around after Gaston in exactly the same manner as he does in the cartoon. We clearly knew LeFou had a massive man crush on Gaston in the original. It was no secret. I didn't see what all the fuss was about. There was no flirtation, there was no kissing, there was no real anything that made me think that was again apart from the end moment between LeFou and the other man. And that was one quick, oh, hello. That was own quick, like that. That was all it was. It seemed like so much fuss for nothing. Like, seriously nothing. But all in all, I just think they did the original so bloody damn proud. Everyone was amazing. I do think that, unfortunately, Gaston, Luke Evans, is getting just a little bit more praise, and his kind of performance is just minutely taking over Emma's Belle just a little bit. But then I just think he was perfection as Gaston. There is no other word I have for it. I loved it. Let me know what you thought. As I say, I'm giving you a review as a fan, as I see it. I actually still have my original VHS of this movie, okay? Let's just put that out there now. I can't tell you much more about it, but I have the original VHS in my cupboard. Thank you everyone for being here and watching this. And you know what? I don't even own a VHS player anymore. If you'd like to subscribe to the channel, please do. If you'd like to follow Twitter, please do, because I neglect Instagram. Let me know what you thought. Let me know if there was anything you didn't like, if you didn't like it, if I've said something you don't agree with. Don't get mean on the channel. I love to disagree with people and have friendly debates. I don't do arguments, okay? If you're going to argue, don't put it down there, because it's just not worth it. I'll see everyone for another video. It's WrestleMania weekend next week. Woo! Let's go. Bye, everyone.